Welcome back, your host, Alencia Johnson.
Thank you. You know, after April's comments, I really wanted to come on stage to Lil' Kim. Money, power, respect. She should make that her walk-on music everywhere, right? Talk about disruptor. That was so good. We're gonna keep this workforce conversation going and talk about another future of work with HBCUs, career pathways, and work-integrated accelerators. And so this session will look at how HBCUs are actually doing this work and creating the future through our future leaders. So please welcome to the stage Keisha Bell, Managing Director and Global Head, Office of Black Affairs at JPMorganChase, Dr. Jasmine Haywood, Strategy Director at Lumina Foundation, and Dr. David Wilson, President of Morgan State University.
All right, well, challenge accepted to incorporate some lyrics into our comments here today. Thank you everyone for being here with us. We are here to talk about HBCUs, career-connected learning, and the future of work. And we are in a real moment of change. Students and families are asking more difficult questions about affordability and the value of their college degrees. Employers are looking for graduates who can adapt and move with confidence in a changing economy. Policymakers and funders like ourselves here are paying closer attention to workforce alignment. And across all of this, HBCUs have a powerful role to play. Do we have any HBCU alum in the audience today? Yes, okay. All right, well, we don't have time for a roll call, but I appreciate the love. And so as you all know, HBCUs have consistently punched above their weight. They expand access, they develop talent, and they strengthen communities. Most importantly, they advance economic mobility, often with fewer resources than their peer institutions. But HBCUs are not only access institutions, they are mobility institutions and engines of economic mobility. UNCF's social mobility research shows that HBCUs move students into the middle class at more than twice the national average. Twice. So that matters very deeply in a time like today where higher education is being asked to prove its value. Before we begin, I know we had one exciting announcement already today about the partnership in South Africa. I wanted to share another exciting announcement. Today, what went live was UNCF's Institute for Capacity Building, who launched the HBCU Work Integrated Learning Accelerator with support from JPMorganChase, thank you, Keisha, and Lumina Foundation. Yes. We are very excited about this work. A shout out to the UNCF team, Dr. Walter Kimbrough and his team in the audience today. So this will be a multi-year effort, and it will help HBCUs build sustainable career-connected learning pathways. It builds on UNCF's previous Career Pathways initiative. A key part of this accelerator and this work will be a community of practice for 15 HBCUs, where institutions will focus on career readiness. Of those 15, 8 HBCUs will then go on to receive $50,000 in catalytic pilot funding to test and implement work-integrated learning models on their campuses. They will also receive tailored technical assistance from Arizona State University's National Work Integrated Learning Accelerator Institute. And Lumina Foundation is especially excited about supporting a separate regional focus in the state of South Carolina with a handful of HBCUs there. So with that being said, today's conversation is very timely And the question before us is not simply whether HBCUs matter to the future of work, because we already know that they do. That's why we're here. The question is whether employers and funders are prepared to partner with HBCUs in ways that are intentional, sustained, and tied to real opportunity for Black students. So with that, I am excited to turn to our esteemed panelists who bring powerful perspectives to this conversation. And Keisha, I would like to start with you, if that's okay. Thank you for being here. So JPMorganChase has thought really carefully and intentionally about HBCU engagement throughout the firm, not just in your philanthropic work, but also in the work you do around Black wealth building, financial strategies, talent development. So from your perspective, why would you say is the right moment for companies to deepen their HBCU strategies, not just as a commitment to diverse talent, but as a business and future of work strategy?
HBCUs, as you said, are economic engines for the communities in which they operate. And so I'll just back up a little bit. At JPMChase, we just recently launched what we call the American Dream Initiative, because we recognize that the American dream has gotten away from a lot of folks, this audience included, and certainly students at HBCUs. And ADI is a multi-year effort that aims to expand economic opportunity, but it also wants to deepen connections with local institutions, thereby the focus on HBCUs. HBCUs, and this is from the 2024 UNCF HBCU Economic Impact Report, HBCUs generate $16.5 billion in total annual economic impact, support over 136,000 jobs nationwide, and contribute to regional economies, creating 12 jobs for every 1 million spent by the institutions and their students. That is significant in terms of what we're trying to do for the American Dream Initiative, and we are intentional about deepening our engagement with select schools and creating bespoke solutions to make sure that HBCUs are around 250 years from now.
That's very important. Thank you. And I do want to add, in addition, plus one, what you said, and say that we are in a difficult moment, as we've been talking about all day today, where some of this work is facing more scrutiny. And what I want to mention is one of the important things to think about for those of you that might be out there and interested in cultivating these cross-sector partnerships, specifically with a historically Black institution, is to keep the focus on the students and the outcomes that HBCUs have, which Keisha just touched on, because the data are clear, the numbers don't lie, and HBCUs are producing graduates that are critical to the future of our workforce, and that's the bottom line. So if employers and industry want a talented workforce, a diverse workforce, and one that's going to generate income for them, then you cannot leave HBCUs out of the equation. And so I want to be very clear about the charge and also share that it's important to be clear about the value proposition. HBCU partnerships are good for students, they're good for employers, and they're good for communities. And so it's an all-around win-win. So I want to transition over to you, Dr. Wilson, and bring you in here because college presidents are also navigating these shifts in real time. And Morgan State has been thinking about the future of work for a long time now. Since 2010, really so much has shifted from our economy to the pandemic, technology. So I'm curious from where you sit as an HBCU president, the 10th president of Morgan State University. You have an alum out there. Why is the future of work such a critical issue for HBCUs right now? And share a little bit about Morgan State's journey and how it's evolved in preparing students for the future of work.
Well, first, it is really with an immense amount of joy and pleasure to be in this conversation to talk about the value of HBCUs and how we cannot have in this country a serious conversation about national competitiveness. And I often say this when I used to visit the White House with some regularity, without HBCUs being at the center of that conversation, primarily because of the things that you've heard. And so I arrived at Morgan in 2010, just a couple of sentences about the university. I'm not assuming that you know who we are, but we are the third largest HBCU in the nation. There are 101 of them. We're the third largest. But we also number one, Jasmine, in the US in producing black electrical engineers. We're number one in civil engineering. We're number one in industrial engineering. We have 30 majors at Morgan where we are number one in the state of Maryland in producing black graduates. So we, in the vernacular, don't take a back seat to no one. And so with that, when I arrived at Morgan, I noticed that while the Silicon Valley was absolutely booming, but there was no trail where students from Morgan were making their way to Google and Apple and Facebook and Intel. And so I got a call from the late Jesse Jackson inviting me and two other HBCU presidents to meet with the CEOs of all of those groups and their C-suites in a closed-door conversation. And it was a stunning conversation. It was an incredible revelation. That then led to Google dispatching to Morgan a Googler who taught full-time in computer science and taught the Python language. And then, of course, that also led to a $50 million gift from Google to 10 other HBCUs. And then it led to, and it took us about 3 or 4 years, a special program called the Google Tech Exchange Program, where our students in their junior year in computer science would go out to Mountain View. They would spend their entire year out there. They would be taught by the Googlers, and they would come back to campus to graduate. The long and short of it is that we have been on this track for a minute, and we understand that we must stay on it because our goal at Morgan and by extension with UNCF is to make sure that all of our HBCUs are producing graduates who are going to get a significant return on the investment that they have made in earning that degree.
Mm-hmm. And that's so important to redesigning the curriculum to make sure that the learning outcomes students are getting in the classroom are connected to the competencies and skills that employers are hiring for. And what better way to do that than to bring an employer into the classroom? So thank you for sharing that story. I love that. Keisha, I want to come back to you to talk about the specific investment with UNCF on the HBCU Work Integrated Learning Accelerator. I've really enjoyed working alongside of you and your team to co-fund this work. I'm curious if you can talk about the impetus for that investment.
The impetus for the investment was, we like statistics, right? And about 11 business leaders said about 11% of graduates of four-year degrees from HBCUs were ready for the workforce. So that's a gap. It's not a gap in skill. It was a gap in, do I have executive presence? Do I know how to show up for interviews, et cetera, right? And so we wanted to close that gap and make sure that the graduates we were seeing were ready. So we started the Work Integration Learning Program with ASU in 2024. We funded that. It was successful. And now we want to continue that with this distinct focus on HBCUs. Happy to report that we're going to start that again soon, and Morgan State will be one of those schools that start the path for us and help us disseminate to other HBCUs. But work-integrated learning is a great opportunity to have folks from an organization come into the school, but it also gives students real life experience in solving workforce problems. When I was 19 years old in school or 20 years old in school, I wasn't taking a year off to do an internship or do whatever because I needed to get a job to support myself because my Pell Grant might have run out, whatever, right? I was from an underserved or low income community. And so we have students who are facing the same issues in coming into the workforce. And so work-integrated learning is one of the keys to unlocking that potential.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So, I mean, one of the threads that I'm hearing is that this work can't just be about exposure. It has to be about intentionality and building that infrastructure. It has to be about helping institutions build the systems, partnerships, and pathways that really allow Black students to move from learning to earning. And so that brings us to one of the more urgent forces shaping the future of work, Dr. Wilson, which is AI. We heard the last session talk about AI, and it's been a thread throughout the day here. AI is being integrated into nearly every sector of the workforce, and that raises a lot of questions for the higher ed sector, especially around preparation, around equity and access. Morgan State has been intentional in this space with your Center for Equitable Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning Systems. Can you talk a little more about how Morgan State specifically is preparing students not only to enter an AI-influenced economy, but also, as we talked about in the last session, to really lead and shape it?
Yeah, you're right. We are all in at Morgan in AI. And briefly, it's in 3 areas. One is research, the other is instruction, and then the other is operations. And so we have a National Center for Equitable AI Machine Learning Systems. It was the only national research center of its kind when it came into existence 4 years ago. At that time, we were hell-bent on teasing out all of the implicit and explicit bias in the algorithms. But that center now has undergraduate students that are working there as research assistants, absolutely understanding this firsthand. Second, starting this fall, we will be offering 3 AI courses in our general education curriculum. Just as you would take introduction to English or introduction to math, you'll be taking an introduction to AI and then a follow-up course. We want to make sure that every single student graduating from Morgan, regardless of major, will be AI literate. And we also are introducing a suite of AI degrees. And so the board just approved yesterday an AI engineering degree. We are also going to add AI to our English degree and AI to about 6 or 7 other degrees. And then finally, we had the audacity, the boldness to say we are not going to upload all of our data to these LLMs, to the large language models. No, we think our data can be monetized. And you know what? We think we can build our own sovereign AI system.
Yes.
And so we basically have been at it now for about 1.5 years. And I can proudly say to you that Morgan has built its own sovereign AI system. And we have been being recognized now as amongst the top 5 universities in the country that are getting AI right. And we just announced Vanguard AI Fellows students who actually are going to be involved in the building of that sovereign AI system. And we are about 50% complete. So when I say we're all in, we are all in. We want to make sure that our students are well prepared for the work of the future. And they're going to get out there and they're going to be the innovators, they're going to be the inventors, and they're going to be the people who are going to get out there and really, in a lot of ways, take this country back.
That's wonderful. And I mean, again, to pull the thread from the session before us, the saying, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, right? And so ensuring that we are both vigilant, but also making sure AI is included as a curricular competency for students is going to be so important moving forward, because that's what the employers and industry are looking for. And so speaking of employers, Keisha, I want to turn back to you. So we heard an earlier example about Google that Dr. Wilson provided. And there's a lot of large employers like the Googles, the Amazons, Goldman Sachs that often have JPMorganChase, case in point, have the infrastructure and the capacity to really build those partnerships with institutions, specifically HBCUs. However, there's some employers, small, mid-sized employers that may not have that same capacity. Some of them might be in the audience here today. What advice would you give to regional companies and mid-sized employers that really do want to engage HBCU students, want to create a talent pipeline, but may not know where to start?
First, it doesn't require a big budget. Engagement needs to be intentional. Another key is to make it easy for students and faculty to be engaged. You can do things like solving a real-life business problem as a class project. You can host virtual job shadowing or virtual job fairs, right? Sponsor micro internships, sponsor mentorship in your company, right? It could be one mentorship, one sponsorship, one career day, it doesn't have to be this big, massive on-campus engagement. The point is to be reliable. If you have one internship to offer, be reliable about it each year. If you have one sponsorship or mentorship opportunity to offer, be reliable about it each year. But getting students engaged with real-life work problems is easy to do. It is high impact, low cost. Try it out.
Love that. Thank you. We are going to enter into the last question, and this one will be for both of you, Keisha and Dr. Wilson. I want to close with a visioning question for both of you. As Keisha mentioned, Morgan State will be involved in the HBCU Work Integrated Learning Accelerator. And so let's imagine that it is the year 2030. Mm-hmm. And UNCF's Work Integrated Learning Accelerator has been successful. 10 out of 10, no notes. What has improved or shifted for HBCU students, for HBCUs, your HBCU in specific, employers, and Black economic mobility? Paint the picture for us. What should be different if we all get this right? And I'll start with you, Keisha.
My mouth is open. I'm ready to talk. I have so much hope and optimism about the future. I think by 2030, I would love to sit here and say that the talent pipeline from HBCUs into corporations like JPMChase is rich and dense and moving forward, and they are career ready, and they start their careers and end their careers at that organization. But I also would want to make sure about the sustainability of HBCUs, that they are financially stable and equipped to move into whatever is next after this AI revolution, and that they're equipped to tell their deep and rich story, as the president did here today about Morgan State. I want all HBCUs to be able to tell just how special they are in their local communities and how they are really an economic engine that is driving economic mobility for our community.
Wonderful. Thank you. What about you, Dr. Wilson?
Maybe what I would hope would happen when this is incredibly successful would be something for students and something for the institutions, the HBCUs. So for the students, much like what Keisha said, I think the students must be able to what I call dance on the world stage.
Yes.
With anyone, any place, anytime, anywhere. And in doing so, I think there's an opportunity for HBCU students to reset the narrative about the purpose of a college degree, because the public's confidence in that has really weakened over the years. And I think we can get in there and we can really play a role in reestablishing for American higher education what the purpose of a college degree is designed to do. For the HBCUs themselves, I would hope that they would become in their local communities, in their state, centers of place-based innovation, where they know how to problem solve, they know how to take that into communities and to make those communities more vibrant. And I guess I would end by invoking the first line and the last line of a poem, For My People by Margaret Walker. In that first line, she said something like, for my people everywhere, singing their slave songs repeatedly, their dirges and ditties and jubilees. And then toward the end, she said something like, let a new nation arise. Let a new race of people rise and take control. If this is successful, that new race of people rising and taking control must be this next generation, and HBCUs have a great opportunity to make that happen.
Thank you. Thank you, Keisha. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. What I'm taking from this conversation is that the value of HBCUs is already clear. And it's been clear since the founding of Cheyney University in Pennsylvania in 1837. The real question is whether the rest of us, both inside and outside this room, are prepared to partner and invest in HBCUs in ways that match the scale of their value. So I'm leaving with a call to action for everyone in this room and everyone listening live online. Do not leave this conversation inspired but inactive. If you're an employer, identify one HBCU, like Keisha said, small steps, baby steps that you can partner with in a really concrete way that goes beyond engaging in a career fair on campus one time. Build a deep and long-lasting and consistent partnerships. If you are a policymaker, ask how public systems can better support HBCUs as engines of workforce development and economic mobility. And if you are a funder or a corporate leader like we are, you need to invest in institutional capacity for HBCUs, not just short-time investments in small programs. So the future of work is not just something that's happening to HBCUs, it is something HBCUs can help lead on, but that requires partnership from all of us in this room here today, and most of all, action. Thank you.
Thank you.